Assalamu alaikum. So today I'll be briefly going over some proofs that we've reviewed before, but new evidence and signs and mathematical proofs about Apophis and the smoke prophecy. Mashallah, God's blessed us with. So just want to go over that today, and also um, I mainly wanted to kind of do a new video that is a little more clear and concise, whereas the first one was good, but if you look up above, we have a table to look at, which is really nice. So if we look at the table, we can see that it's a little more organized, but we can see, and I'll pull up the Quran, God willing, but starting at verse 44, or verse 10 of Surah 44, excuse me, we're going to have that's the smoke prophecy. So this is in relation to Rashad Khalifa's smoke prophecy, and by God's leave, he most certainly can inform people uh, about such things, and he informs the believers who have faith in their hearts and who want to believe as well, and and also appreciate the Quran's mathematical miracle. And this, personally for me, and I'm sure for many others in our group, and probably everybody has made them more appreciative of the mathematical miracle of the Quran. And ironically, it has repelled, disbelievers, the few disbelievers from the Turkish group, who essentially expose themselves as disbelievers and disbelieving in the entire Quran's mathematical miracle altogether. And it's evident by the things that they've said and the doubt they tried to spread. But praise be to God for His mercy in sending us stronger proofs and signs about this. So let's look over that, and also just pointing out um, these parameters were not chosen. The date of Apophis, June 19th, 2004, was not chosen. The date of impact, April 13th, 2029, was not chosen. Friday the 13th. The location of discovery was not chosen, Tucson, Arizona. The name Apophis, Apophis, and the geometrical value letters that are also tied to that specific name, which was not chosen. So, and even what Apophis, the name, what it stood for or stands for currently, even as to this day, the Egyptian god of death and destruction. So we know our messenger, Rashad Khalifa, God's messenger, the covenant, was Egyptian. The message came about, and where he lived was in Tucson, Arizona. In addition to it being discovered on the 19th, and then all of these, along with many more, 76 to be exact, that were discovered from a computer program. I mean, well, the first, there were several, or more than several, but there was a lot of signs that came about, and then more came about afterwards. But all that can be looked at submission.ws, and go to the articles titled "Getting Ready for the Smoke." And I would also encourage looking at the previous article, "The Smoke: A Major Prophecy," to just get a little background, and also coming to understand the Quran's mathematical miracle, for those who may be watching this, although this will be, um, for everybody, but for those that may not know about such a thing, it's really amazing, and it proves, the Quran's mathematical miracle proves that this is from God, and everything we've been given. So all the parameters have been set. The formulas have been the same, even the way, how the end of the world in relation to Gog and Magog, how the verses were counted, which we'll get into in a second. All of that we're all, using the same formula. So, and also, God willing, it will be added to the article at submission too, at the right time or sometime soon. But it was found that the Rashad Khalifa, God's messenger of the covenant, he said, quote, he talked about, he gave the example of Moses' mother, and and he said, quote, this is an example of God informing a human being of the future, so that, along with this, and along with just, all the proofs, even before this one that we're going to briefly go over, because we have a table now, which is a little better. But all of the every one of their these few doubters, their claims have been nullified. So so if we look right here, so starting at verse 44, smoke. So, and this only works when it's applied to the year 2029, the year of Apophis, Friday the 13th, April the 13th, 2029. So, between, the smoke prophecy and the Gog and Magog prophecy, if you subtract those two, we get 242 years. So, if we count from this, the smoke verse, the smoke a major prophecy, therefore watch for the day when the sky brings a profound smoke. If we count 242 verses from this verse, we end up landing on Surah 50, verse 36. And feel free to count this yourself. It's kind of more impactful too, or too, if you count it. But believe me, I've counted this several times, and individually, one by one, and also using subtracting the verses and from each surah and adding them up. So if we look at this one, the 242 verses later, representing the 242 years between, we land on a verse that says, many a generation before them who were more powerful we annihilated. They searched the land that they find an escape. So this is, we can look at this as Gog and Magog type of verse. Alhamdulillah, there's no such thing as coincidence when it comes to this, and especially if we look at the verses that, the other verses in this surah that are right near it or right around it, and then just on this entire page, they're very distinct, and so this verse is very unique in the sense where we can see that the subject and the topic from right above it is completely changed. So we can look at that, and then also it's interesting too. If we look at it's being at verse 36, we can see verse 36. 36 equals 18 times 2. And Gog and Magog are the two villainous communities mentioned in Surah 18. So that's also adds some solidification. But even without that, alhamdulillah, it's just like, icing on the cake. We can see that this verse is very, the fact that out of all the different verses and countless things, 242 verses later, we land on this one, and this only works with Apophis. And so starting at this verse, we're going to count this verse representing the final 9 years. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this verse reads, the day will come when the earth cracks in a hurry, giving rise to them. such summoning is easy for us to do. So this is, this is an end of the world type of verse. If you want to see it that way. And it's out of all the verses, there's no such thing as coincidence. So this is really amazing. The fact that count, um, we can count the verses as years, and we can see these proofs. So this is something amazing, and this isn't just being we're not. This isn't playing with numbers. This is set in stone. We're not picking and choosing verses. We had to stick to 242. And then so forth. And then even more interesting, we'll go back to 44:10, the smoke prophecy, and then the prophecy before that is God's messenger, the covenant. So so we have the smoke prophecy, which hasn't happened. We have the Gog and Magog, which also hasn't happened. But the most recent prophecy that was fulfilled, which comes before the smoke, was God's messenger, the covenant. So we'll just briefly look at page 406 of the Quran, which is Appendix 2, I believe. God's messenger, the covenant. Appendix 2. The covenant fulfilled, December 21st, 1971. Rashad Khalifa, the soul, the real person, not the body, was taken to some place in the universe where he was introduced to all the prophets as God's messenger of the covenant. Alhamdulillah. And also taking a sneak peek at this verse, or this appendix on page 466. Signs of the end of the world. So if we look here, we can see this prophecy has been fulfilled. The smoke has not been fulfilled yet. Gog and Magog, and this was prophesied. So we can see the one that has been fulfilled. We have two more. So if we go back to verse 44, so this is where it gets really amazing. So if we start at verse 9, counting back from 44:9, reading, indeed, they are doubtful, heedless. We land on the verse, so we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I'm counting back with these, because it's not too long, but I wouldn't sit here and try to do 242 on here for time's sake. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, and 58. So this is God's messenger of the covenant verse. So, and this is not by coincidence. We're counting back and reading and signifying that indeed they are doubtful, heedless of God's messenger, the covenant, and everything He brought. So this is really amazing, and I encourage people to also look at the proofs. This alone, or even just some of the original findings. About the date of Apophis. If you add that, Apophis date, Apophis year, along with the discovery and the Apophis geometrical value, of APOPHIS, each individual. It's amazing because these parameters aren't chosen. They were given to us, so we're not, this isn't numerology. This is the real deal, and you can come to appreciate it. For the more you understand the Quran's mathematical miracle, which, also showed to us that those, disbelievers, the Turkish group that ended up dropping out, really didn't either understand the miracle or couldn't appreciate it. But alhamdulillah, God is running everything. They obviously didn't belong with us, and in addition, we wouldn't have looked, when all that was happening, when this came about, we wouldn't have been looking, I don't think. Uh, but God showed us greater signs, so that's a real blessing. So the next part I want to go over are some calculations that were found about these. Um, so this is really amazing too. So if you look here, God's messenger of the covenant. So we can see that these are there's some really strong signs. In addition, like just further solidifying, it should remove all traces of doubt. Like the more you look at it, and the more you kind of just study it and think about it, that it's not by accident. It's perfect because these things weren't chosen. They were. And this only works with Apophis, and I mean, not to mention all the other signs, Tucson 19, on the 19th in Egypt. I mean, that bears the messenger of the covenant signature, and then all the other signs and mathematical proofs that can be found on submission.ws. So, I mean, this is really a blessing that, just in the same way Noah and and the believers were informed about a disaster. They were. God thus can inform us, and He protects the believers, and it's out of His mercy, because having to prepare for not be, caught off guard in the sense, or where when the retribution comes for the Arab world, the entire Arabian world, it's going to impact the whole earth, but they were the biggest opponents of the Quran's miracle and then God's messenger of the covenant. They were really fighting God without realizing it. So looking at these proofs, there's 5 amazing calculations. So and then also it strengthens too, because if you look, what's amazing about these as well is that they're in brackets. So if you look how they're specifically ordered in parentheses, or we'll just think of them as brackets, in the sense how they're housed in, but it also strengthens the correlation of the verse and the year, and the respective year. So the God's messenger of the covenant verse, which is 4340, times the year of the prophecy, and that's by itself because it's not the same. And you add that to the next bracket, the smoke verse times the year of the prophecy, where if you don't multiply them all together, because that gives a different number, but having them individually really strengthens the relationship between the two, between each prophecy and its respective year. And now, of course, the end of the world is not a prophecy, but it's the end of the world. It's in its year. So if we look here, we can just continuing on. You add that to the Gog and Magog year of the prophecy 2271 plus the surah and the verse, or excuse me, times the surah plus the verse, and then you add that to the end of the world year times the surah plus the verse, and then you get a multiple of 19. So furthermore, if you want to looking at this too, so you looking at this one, if you add God's messenger of the covenant verse times its year of the prophecy, and then you add that to the next bracket, which is the smoke verse times the year of the prophecy, Apophis 2029, and then you add that to the next bracket, the Gog and Magog type of verse times its prophecy year, plus the end of the world type of verse times its year, and then you get a multiple of 19. And this is really amazing. This strengthens, the correlation. Not to mention just the counting. Just the counting alone. That's incredible. And this only works with the year 2029. So we can and then counting backwards, so it covers all the God's messenger, the covenant prophecy. And then we have the smoke right there in the middle, and then the Gog and Magog and the end of the world. Also, so look at this one, God's messenger, the covenant verse, minus the year prophecy, and then you add that to the smoke verse, minus that, the smoke's year, the prophecy. You add that to the Gog and Magog type of verse, minus the year of that prophecy, and then you add that to the end of the world type of verse, minus that year, and then that's a multiple of 19. So you can see how it's being constructed here. There's the verse. There's a certain verse, and it's in relation to its respective year, and you do that for each prophecy and then the end of the world, and then you add all of those numbers up, and it's a multiple of 19. So look at this one. We have the end of the world, verse and year. So that's Surah 50, verse 44, and in the year 2280, minus the Gog and Magog verse and year. So that's Surah 50, verse 36, and in the year 2271. And then you keep that over here. You can subtract those two. You can keep that right here, and you multiply the other two. So which are the smoke verse, and in its year, the Apophis year 2044, verse 10, Surah 44, verse 10, and in the year 2029, subtract God's messenger, the covenant, verse and year, which is Surah 44, Surah 43, verse 40, and in the year is 1971, and then you have that, and you add the two, and that's a multiple of 19. So this is awesome. And we know that the God's messenger of the covenant brought the truth, because even though we weren't sure when the smoke would happen from 1989, there was still, we still, within 50 years, but we can see it's coming. It has come within that time range, and it's the signs are just so huge. The mathematical signs, and then how what the name was chosen. It proves to us that God chooses all these things. He chose that this asteroid was going to be the one, what its name was, where it was discovered, on the day it was discovered, the day it's going to hit. This is evidence that God is doing everything, and everything's already been recorded. As far as God, everything has already been recorded, and so, he's the knower of the future, and in the past, and as we know from the audio, I think we heard it from the Rashad Khalifa, God's messenger of the covenant, that, God can inform the believers about the future, and he is also, his mercy, and it's a proof too. It will be a proof for the future generations that, that come afterwards and that witness this, that God protects the believers, and it shows, it gives also us comfort, and lets us know that God is with those who believe. God's with the submitters. So, so we can thank God for these things. So looking at this last calculation, we have the end of the world, verse and year. So that's Surah 50, verse 44, and in the year 2280. And we subtract that from the Gog and Magog verse and year. That's Surah 50, verse 36, and then 2271. And then you multiply that times the other set of the smoke verse and year, Surah 44, verse 10, and in the year 2029, and then plus God's messenger, the covenant verse and year, and that's Surah 43, verse 40, and in the year 1971, and then that's a multiple of 19. And these are big numbers too, so this is perfect, this is, this was all, been checked as well. The app, submission, you can go to submission.god if you haven't installed it, and as well as it's been, these, you can back check these on Wolfram Alpha, but the app is fully mathematical. Calculator, 19 calculator is fully functional, and it's working perfectly, so mashallah. So, and just one more thing I wanted to go over too and add to this video. God willing, there is also interesting. Not just interesting, it's really awesome and really amazing. And so if we look at Surah 44, and this personally too, this helped me, like, how God augments faith. So if we look at Surah 44, Surah 34, Sheba, and we'll start at verse 28. So let's pull back up the Quran here, and we'll go to read mode, inshallah. So if we read this, starting at verse 28 through verse 30, God's messenger of the covenant, hopefully we can read this. We have sent you, O Rashad, to all the people, a bearer of good news as well as a warner, but most people do not know. They challenge, verse 29, they challenge, when will this promise come to pass if you are truthful? Say, you have a specific time on a specific day that you cannot delay by 1 hour nor advance. And also, 2029. But here's where it gets really awesome. So we can see, kind of like the timeline and what's being talked about here. God's messenger of the covenant came as a warner. He warned about the smoke, and they ridiculed the prophecy. And we can see in the very next verse, they challenge, when will this promise come to pass if you're truthful? The promise of the smoke, Apophis, right? So, and in the verse 30, and the next one says, say you have a specific time on a specific day that you cannot delay by 1 hour nor advance. So we also keep in mind that using the word specific time on a specific day. So keep that in mind. So if we look here, just copied and pasted this, so it was easier. So if we look up above, if we put Surah 34 and in verse 28, and remember it was God's messenger of the covenant, so similarly we would put 12:30 next to it. Verse 29, what did it read? They challenge, when will this promise come to pass if you're truthful? So that's, Apophis. We put 9942. And then verse 30 say you have a specific time on a specific day that you cannot delay by 1 hour nor advance. And then so we would put the specific appointed day, which is Friday the 13th, 4/13. Notice we're leaving out the year here too, and this is kind of amazing too. So so look at this. So we go to 19 calculator. So we enter Surah 34, verse 28, and then we enter, I was talking about God, specifically said God's messenger to Governor Shah Khalifa, so that's 12:30. It's a direct right. Then we move on to the next one. They challenge, when will this promise come to pass? Verse 29, so that's 34:29. The promise of Apophis, so we enter 99942, which is the Apophis number. And in verse 30, say you have a specific time on a specific day, so that's 34:30. Specific time, specific day, so we'll enter the day 4/13, and it's a multiple of 19. SubhanAllah. So this is, it's really amazing too if you just look at what is being talked about, how it's, in order. Alhamdulillah, the subject, God's messenger of the covenant, Rashad, he came as a warner, and then they challenged, the Arabs mocked the smoke prophecy, when it's going to come to pass if you're truthful. When will this promise come to pass? The promise of the smoke. And then the very next verse, talks about the appointed time, on the day. And so we can see adding this up, is really something, It's 34:28, and then that's Rashad Khalifa, and then 34:29, that's the Apophis, and then 34:30, and that's Friday the 13th, April 13th. So mashallah. So yeah, this is just a kind of a summation of the previous video, along with new proofs and signs and mathematical proofs or signs and calculations that I would encourage, to just continue to look at too, or even go on to read, because it's the same as going back over and reading. Helps us to get a even better grasp on the Quran's mathematical miracle, because it uses all the same formulas, even the way the messenger calculated the Gog and Magog and the end of the world by counting. So nobody, like some of them were trying to say that the formulas were different or whatever, but it's the same way we're all using it, subhanAllah, and all their claims have been nullified. So it's a real blessing to have this, and may God protect us and help us all to prepare for such a eventful day that is, really going to shape the future. And this is also, we have plenty of time, to strive before the victory, because we know the victory is coming, and we know the messenger, especially with this, it should cause us to rejoice, that the messenger did indeed bring the truth. And just go imagine that, these disbelievers would this actually repelled them and made them insult the Quran's mathematical miracle. But alhamdulillah, God is running everything, because such awesome signs and more proofs, great signs came afterwards. So inshallah, remember submission.ws, and go to articles, getting ready for the smoke. And also it's good to review the smoke prophecy itself, and also the entire Quran's mathematical miracle of 19. And so with that being said, God bless you all. Thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum.